Well, welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of March the 7th. March the 7th, it's my mom's birthday today, Shyam, so that's the good news.
The Raptors must have missed the memo, man. They didn't win one for your mom.
No, they did not. It was one of those losses that I'm trying to struggle to define in one word. Like if you had to define or recap this Houston loss at home in one word, what would that one word be?
Typical Sunday evening game.
That's not one word though. You got to go with one word.
Disappointing. I mean that sounds cliche, but that's literally what it was. It was just disappointing. We've had a few of these like lay egg type games on Sunday evenings, and this was just one of the others. I think there's one like last week against Detroit. Earlier in the season we've lost a couple of these against like Phoenix, Sacramento, and so on. And today was just another disappointing loss. Yeah,
I got to go with annoying.
Annoying?
Yeah, it was annoying to be up 18 and seemingly cruising. And I was on the cusp of like kind of turning the game off and doing something else when I saw Houston make that run in the third, and I was like, yeah, I better just hang around here for a bit. And 3 after 3 goes in, and next thing you know, James Harden is hitting like Steph Curry type threes from like 30 feet out, and the Raptors dropped this one. I don't know. It was just like we just got blindsided by the 3-point shot in this game. I felt the Rockets were 13 of 30, but a lot of them came in that second half, especially in the fourth quarter. Defense is what kind of sticks out here. And a stat that I just pulled up pre-podcast was like post All-Star break, the Raptors are the 4th worst defensive team in the league, and they've been giving up a lot of points, obviously to Portland and Damian Lillard the other night, 50, and Harden goes for what, like 40 today again. So it's been we're struggling to contain the other team's top player, and we're letting the Cory Brewers of the word have big games. So your thoughts on just the defense the Raptors have played in the second half of the season, not just the Houston game per se, but just overall.
Just crappy, man. And that's a big deal because I mean, like Dwayne Casey, this is his, I think 4th or 5th year now, and like he's had up and down in terms of from a talent perspective, roster wise, he has had an up and down roster from a defensive perspective. I mean, we've had good defensive players in the past, like Amir Johnson and stuff, but this year we boasted a pretty tough lineup defensively. Most of the guys were off the bench, mind you, with Biyombo, Joseph, and Terrence Ross and stuff, but we had a much better defensive team than last year on paper. So if Casey's not able to sort of in year 4 or 5 being able to really implement that with a good defensive from a talent perspective team, that's pretty worrisome. And I think we're still winning games, so I don't want to make this into some Dwayne Casey roast session, but at the same time, it's just disappointing to see because that's what we expect him to be good at. Yeah. And in terms of tonight, man, like I agree with you. I think it was just a blindsided loss. It was weird because Houston, it seemed like they were just perfectly set up for another loss, another disappointing game for them. They're on a back-to-back after facing Chicago last night, and it just seemed like they were just going to give up. And for them to come back and hit those threes, Ariza, Harden, just everyone just pouring on the threes. It was pretty impressive, and it just goes to show like you really like in today's NBA just can't take your foot off the gas.
Yeah, so overall for the season, the Raptors are 14th in the league in defense. Just post All-Star break, things have been especially bad, and for this game and also the second half of that Portland game as well. The one thing that I noticed was just the closeouts are extremely poor. They're a bit too aggressive, and it makes the decision making for the offensive player very, very easy. You saw Terrence Jones in this game, kind of like as soon as he caught the ball at the 3-point line, somebody ran at him, whether it be Scola or whether it be Ross or James Johnson or whoever, and he didn't even have to fake a shot. The closeout was so aggressive that he kind of just waltzed into the lane and then executed like a couple of moves or just passed it back out for the 3. So it's annoying to see the closeout come back to haunt you like time and time again, because that's supposed to be a fairly standard play to make in the NBA, where the guys at the line, you close out at a proper angle. And so that's kind of what stuck out for me. And obviously in this game, the Luis Scola factor, he had a good offensive game. I think he had 20 points. He was on fire actually, for 9 of 13 for 21 points. But him against Monty Eunice and Howard, a big front line, not the quickest. I don't mind that from a defensive standpoint. I think you can absorb Luis Scola here. But in that second half, you saw him like his quickness or lack of being taken advantage of.
Yeah, like I think Luis Scola he's done this sort of in the past too, where he just kind of has like a really good first quarter, and sort of really asserts himself because he kind of just catches teams by surprise, just how ready he is to start the game, and you give him the ball down low if he gets good position. He can get a couple quick points, gets his confidence up, hits a couple threes, and I think we saw that in the first half, and then like you said, in the second half, it caught up to him eventually, just from a sheer size and talent perspective on the Rockets.
And nobody's like absolved here, man. I think JV his defense against Dwight Howard was quite poor as well.
Oh yeah, I think he did his best, but like Dwight Howard has historically always been a tough matchup for us, and I think to hold him to 21 and 11, it was just like, you know what. Whatever. Like I think the bigger problem was Harden and some of the other guys in terms of the threes, and I agree with you. The closeouts were terrible, especially on the fast break because we kind of caught the short end of the stick with a couple of the bouncing ball, offensive rebound type situations where it just kind of bounces around and they get threes. And then we had a couple of ill-advised turnovers that led to threes. And Corey Brewer, like somebody had to put a man on Corey Brewer. He was 5 of 10 from 3, I think. So, if Corey Brewer's hitting 5 threes, James Harden's hitting 3 threes, Patrick Beverley's hitting threes, Ariza's hitting threes, like, people were just not closing out, and that's what ended up, burning the Raptors in the second half. I think we gave up 62 in the second half against the Rockets, 63 against the Blazers, so the defense has just been pretty shitty.
Yeah. And sorry, I meant Corey Brewer earlier when I said Terrence Jones. I don't know why I got those two mixed up. It's a bit of a bad loss, right? Back to back and all that. We already mentioned that. It's just Corey Brewer has basically had the Raptors number for quite some time now. I think Terrence Ross is sort of terrified to face him. He kind of almost gets bullied by Brewer a lot. But moving along, like bad loss. Let's chalk it off. The last thing I want to mention on this game is the defense played by Beverley on Kyle Lowry. Like he was very aggressive early in the first quarter. Like I saw that first quarter, and Beverley was all over Lowry, like getting in his face, elbowing him. He picked up a couple of fouls too, just checking Lowry aggressively. But it kind of made that mark, and I felt that it kind of took Lowry's offense out of the game, where he didn't want to force it because he didn't want to appear that he's forcing it because of Beverley, and he ended up taking like 10 shots in this game. DeRozan had 10 being guarded by Ariza. So both our stars kind of were locked down by good defensive players on the other side.
Yeah, like even Jason Terry and to some extent Beverley too, like just locked down Corey Joseph too. Corey Joseph was like minus 15 for the game. Missed a couple of shots that he would make if he had a slower defender on him, or a less physical defender in Beverley. So I think on both Lowry and Joseph. Like, Lowry had a reasonably good offensive game. Like, he still went 5 for 10, still had, really good timely threes, went 4 for 7. It was just that he couldn't assert himself as much as he wanted to. And in terms of Joseph, same thing. He was just suffocated defensively. So I think containing the Raptors at the point of attack and in the backcourt is basically half the battle against them, right?
Yeah. And just speaking of Joseph, I mean, just going back to the Portland game a little on probably a big win for the Raptors. Again, they were up early, blew a lead, and then had to basically survive Damian Lillard going off. He was 16 for 28 for 50 points here. I saw the first half of this game, and I just caught glimpses of the second, so I don't know the full story here, but I recall while I was watching that Corey Joseph was actually playing some solid defense in that first half. And if it weren't for him, checking Lillard and being aggressive with him, he might have gone for 75.
It was crazy, man. In the second half, it was absolutely nuts. I think the first half, you're right, I think he was contained. We did our best on him. Corey Joseph, obviously, great on-the-ball defender. But in the second half, this guy was just unconscious. And I think he's playing at another level right now. He had that Steph Curry type of mentality coming into the game. He was just unconscious, 3-4 feet behind the basket, 10 feet behind the 3-point line. Sorry, at 10 feet behind the 3-point line to end the first quarter or second quarter. So it was absolutely incredible. The guy could do absolutely anything he wanted. Gets to his spots, hits his mid-range jumpers, hits his threes, and could get to the basket too. So, yeah. Unbelievable that he wasn't an All-Star.
Yeah, and so in this game, let's just chalk this off to, hey, we survived Damian Lillard being just exploding for 50. I almost if we had lost that game, it would have almost been understandable, because sometimes when a guy is hot, there's nothing you can do about it, and you can accept it. It was kind of what was that? Jimmy Butler Remember when he went for like 43 against us at home?
Yeah, that was the January home game. Yeah.
That's what was coming to mind when I was watching just that second half a little.
When it was just like okay, you win.
But somebody had a good showing here. Norman Powell got the start and 10 points, 3 for 5. And again, I saw some Instagram clips today. He's throwing down pretty big dunks in practice. Thoughts on Norman Powell here?
Norman Powell can play basketball. I think we all can sort of agree on that. The question is how he's going to sort of carve his way into this rotation, if you will. Obviously, with DeMarre being injured, this is just sort of an opportunity for him to sort of step into, getting minutes. And in a starting role against Utah, I think you saw somebody, being ready from a readiness perspective, playing in the 905. I think he dropped something like 36 points the previous night in Mississauga, comes to the game, and then learns he's starting the next day. So it was just incredible to see Powell ready and focused to, at the task at hand. And this felt like the game Bebe had in Atlanta in December, where it was just sort of like a mini coming out party. Like, it was not like they had, a player of the game type of game. It was just nice to see that, a rookie coming off the bench and just contributing. So, good stuff for Powell, and I think going into the next 5 to 10 games as DeMarre sort of aims to come back, I think Powell will continue to sort of show Dwayne Casey that he's a reasonable third string, shooting guard / small forward.
Yeah, and like you saw against like going back to the Rockets game, you saw James Johnson play that, and the Rockets were just completely leaving him open. He literally had like 6-7 feet of space. And even after he caught the ball, there was no attempt by a Rocket to close out. And they were just very comfortable letting him shoot. And that was the similar type of defense that was being played against Norman Powell, where people were testing his jumper. And right now, obviously the sample size is really small. He's shooting like 17% from 3. But if he's able to develop that long 2 or 3, I think you see his drive game open up that much more, because he's got that explosive first step. And what's the reason we're not seeing that explosive first step as much as often from Powell is because teams are just backing off of him right now.
Yeah, he can shoot. Like, and you're right. Like, teams, we know he can shoot because we've seen his highlights at UCLA. We've seen his D-League game and so on. Advanced scouts may know about it, but the players themselves, they just don't. I don't think they know Norman Powell well enough, or know what he can do or bring to the table to be able to really justify, closing out hard, making sure somebody's always on him. So I think he's easy to forget about from an opponent's perspective, but like, we know what he can do, and I think with Norman Powell, like, he's got that sort of Avery Bradley type of feel where he can get into you on defense. He's he's agile, he's quick, he's obviously very athletic. And then on the offensive side of the ball, he's a great 3-point threat and can jump out of the gym. So
yeah, he's not a 3-point threat yet. I don't think he is yet. I think he's
what I'm trying to say is I think he's on that trajectory though. I think he's clearly got a jump shot that is developable into sort of a reliable 3-point stroke. But yeah, I don't think he's there yet, and that's why teams are sort of laying off him, right? Once he sort of gets that notoriety around the league, I think that's when you'll start seeing teams game plan for it.
Yeah, my thing with him is that he has close to a 7-foot wingspan. Like, if you want to compare that to Avery Bradley has a 6'6" wingspan. So his defense can be very disruptive if he starts to become.
I think he's shorter than Avery Bradley though, right? He's like 6'4", Bradley's 6'6", I believe 6'5".
No, Bradley's like 6'3", 6'4", and he's 6'4".
Oh, he's
the same height.
Oh, so it's the same height. Yeah. Okay.
It's the same height, and wingspan.
Yeah, so they're
is
similar
just
players. Yeah, that's right.
And I think I remember when we passed up on Avery Bradley or didn't get a chance to get him in the draft. I was kind of bummed out because we kind of needed that defensive guy at the 2 or in the backcourt, and I think Norman Powell can do that. But right now, as you said, he's playing mostly because DeMarre Carroll isn't there. So a good segue to DeMarre Carroll talk. Depending on what you read, I think at this point the media is just speculating, and nobody has any real information on when DeMarre Carroll's coming back. Michael Grange is posting some stuff. Somebody else is posting some stuff. Nobody really knows. Let's just say 3 to 4 weeks away. Let's say 2 weeks away. Doesn't really matter. I think the Raptors have to get him about 2-3 weeks of proper basketball ahead of the playoffs, and that would be a good situation.
Yeah, this whole situation's a bit weird right now. Like, it's just, we don't have any news of what the situation was. I mean, obviously we knew it was a knee surgery to go in and clean up some stuff in the knee. It was sort of an arthroscopic procedure. That's all we sort of know. But the Raptors have been weirdly, not silent, but just very sort of standoffish about it and kind of just saying, there's no timetable, there's no timetable. So I guess there really is no timetable for his return. And that's, I wouldn't say worrisome, but it's sort of approaching that territory just given that we've got, less than basically a month until playoffs. So to get 3 weeks or 2 weeks of basketball run, he's basically going to have to come back either at the end of this week or beginning of next, right?
Yeah, it's I just forgot how close it is actually. Yeah, so it's he's got to come back soon enough. And the one thing he does is like at this point, I'm not even so much looking forward to his defense because I think, of course, he's going to help the defense a little bit and help check the other team's best player a little. But it's the 3-point shooting because when I saw the last two games and I saw the space being given to some of our wings, even DeMarre DeRozan, getting offered looks from deep. It just we need that extra guy at the wing who can knock down shots. And when Terrence Ross is not in the lineup. You get James Johnson or Norman Powell or whoever is in there. The same level of respect is just not afforded, and it does actually impact the floor spacing.
Yeah, like against opposing wings, like tonight against Harden, having DeMarre Carroll in the mix, guarding Harden on any switches or in the paint when he gets in a position to be fouled. DeMarre Carroll offers a more stable option, and it just sucks because he's been injured for basically the majority of the season so far.
Yeah.
Both early in the season and January onwards with the knee issue.
And even when he played, he was injured, so you can't even count those games.
Yeah, and it was almost like I don't know whether to be worried about DeMarre Carroll or just sort of kind of like, hey, we're doing well without him. Let's just let's park that aside. It's just we're paying this guy the highest salary on the team, and he's played basically 10% of the season, I think. So it's a little worrisome, and it sucks that we're not getting the bang for our buck. But having him in time for the playoffs when we actually need him, given that we have a second seed, I think is the most important part.
Yeah, and if we look at our offense a little bit right now, and it's post All-Star break, and this is where stats will kind of get you. Is Shyam, what do you think our offense is post All-Star break in the ranked in the league? What do you think?
Well, if our defense has been crap, but we've still been winning games, then our offense must be pretty good. I don't know the exact numbers, though. Maybe you can finish.
Number one.
There you go.
Number one post All-Star break offense.
So yeah, exactly. What's our net rating, though?
It's 114.4. Dallas is second, and the Trailblazers are third. Obviously.
Do you have the net rating in front of you, though? Like the.
Oh, the net is okay. Fine, the net's not that great.
Yeah, because that's what I kind of want to know. Okay. Because we're winning pretty slim games too, right? Like we've won even against Portland. I think we only won it like by 2. So.
Yeah, the net rating is the 8th in the league, so it's not terrible.
Yeah.
The offense is keeping us alive, but again, the clutch offense is a little different story because we're kind of struggling there. And some plays that stuck out in my mind again, because the recency bias again, talking about Portland, it's that DeMarre DeRozan, he drove a lot to the basket today in the second half, and at least 2 or 3 times he had JV open rolling to the rim. And he chose not to pass and ended up getting fouled. And on one of those, he missed a free throw, and then Harden came back and hit that big 3. It's that trust factor that I would like to see back at the level where it was in January. Because I think there was a stretch of games in January, February where the Raptors were engaging JV in the offense really, really well. I think he's still making the right cuts to the rim. He's still making the right rolls. The Raptors can't forget about him because he's a component of this offense that. If it's running, it's flying high coming into the playoffs, it gives you that much of an advantage. So that's my one pet peeve with the number 1 ranked offense post All-Star break.
Yeah, like I think I totally agree with you. I think with JV, like he's gonna have a good field goal percentage. Like he's gonna shoot about 50% from the field, like most of the time. And I think with DeRozan, he just forced the issue a couple. I know the 2 possessions you're talking about too, and the missed free throw and the 3, like. It was just, you could see it developing, and you're just like, man, either he gets the call and it's a great play, and we're, applauding DeMarre for getting to the line, or sometimes the Rockets just played him straight up, and he didn't get the call, and forced the issue a little bit, tried to get an and one, thinking he was going to get fouled, and then, he missed. JV was open, Rockets come right back and hit a 3. So I think there were a couple times that happened, and it was disappointing to see. I think once the team sort of realizes the fact that Lowry and DeRozan can't do everything every night. I don't know if they will realize that, but once they realize that is when I think JV can really start taking a larger role in the offense, especially in the fourth quarter, given the pick and rolls and other plays that we run.
Yeah, so that's the Jazz game. I guess we haven't talked about yet. Do you want to talk? It seems like ages ago, even though it was like 2 games ago.
Yeah, it's just not very newsworthy. It was just a regular midweek game. Shitty opponent, and we won. So, well, maybe not that shitty. They're one game out of the playoffs in the West.
They're not in the playoffs, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think they're 1 game back of Houston, the team we played tonight. So 1 or 2, I can't remember, but they're not a good team. We should beat them anyway. So. Yeah,
it's hard to get excited about that. So just a quick check on the standings. The Raptors 3 games back of the Cavaliers. It was 2 games at one point, but again, 4.5 ahead of the Celtics. So number 2. The second spot is what it is. It's been there. It's been like that for quite some time now. For a few weeks, the Raptors are kind of nestled into that second spot, and it's just a game of who we're gonna play in the playoffs. And 7th spot right now belongs to the Indiana Pacers. The Bulls are a game back of them in 8th, and the Hornets a game ahead. So it's still the merry-go-round or whatever you want to call it. It's still going on at the bottom of the playoff seat. So I don't know. Let's not talk about who we're gonna face. Let's talk about some other Raptor news that happened over the week, and that's Anthony Bennett. Anthony Bennett, no more. The Raptors cut him after a lot of people basically had enough of Anthony Bennett. I think we've had. Did you see enough from Anthony Bennett this year, Shyam, that you were like, I think I feel comfortable cutting this guy?
No.
You did?
Guess, no, what I mean is I didn't see enough to warrant keeping him.
Okay.
I think Masai Ujiri, when interviewed about it, made a good point that I think made a lot of sense. He said, we put Anthony in a tough spot, and I think we did, because coming into the season, Bennett was playing preseason minutes. He was playing early in the season as a kind of an 8th or 9th, 10th type of guy, and as the season progressed, we realized this team was a lot better than what we initially had planned for, especially, in 2016 and onwards. So once we turned that corner, and you'd see, James Johnson, Luis Scola, Patrick Patterson, and even with DeMarre Carroll out, Norman Powell or other guys filling in, and Bennett just never seemed to be able to crack the lineup. And, why waste a roster spot when you know it's not working? And even for his sake, it just wasn't the best situation. So I think shipping him out, bringing in Jason Thompson, I think it was one of those moves where it was a typical Masai Ujiri, low risk, potentially high reward type of move. So, didn't have a problem with it, but not a large enough sample size anyway with Bennett because of how sort of the lineup shaped up as the season progressed.
I can't think of one thing he did at an above NBA average level.
Other than being slightly more athletic than the average 4, but at the end of the day,
I don't know what that means.
Is a dime a dozen. Yeah. I agree. He had no tangible basketball skill that you could point to and say he's better than 50% of guys at that.
Yeah.
And that usually gets you out of the league.
I think that kind of sums it up. I mean, you got to have one thing you can actually produce consistently on the, Terrence Ross, as bad as he was always hitting a high clip from the three-point line. And that's what kept him in the lineup. That's what kept him on the roster. That's what got him his contract, because he had one skill which was considerably better than 70% of other NBA players. He's a good three-point shooter. And that's enough. With Anthony Bennett, he's shooting 21% from 3. He's shooting 30% from the field. His rebounding percentages are horrible. His hustle is not there. He's not a good scorer. So what are you which of
You know what it is, man? You know what it is? I honestly think coming into the season, it's actually Bismack Biyombo. And I'll tell you why. Coming into this season, I remember we did a pod and you asked me, we were talking about minutes and stuff, and we were talking about whether we honestly would expect Biyombo or Bennett to get more minutes at the 4. And at that point, it was mid-October. It was right in the middle of the Blue Jays frenzy. And we were literally thinking, we didn't know at that point who was going to really step in and be, that second or third 4 or 5 off the bench. And at that time, Bennett seemed like a guy who could potentially crack the rotation. And now it's so far out of the question. And I think a large part of that is because of how Biyombo stepped in as a more than reliable, I guess, more than what we expected level of reliability in terms of coming off the bench, providing that energy, hustle, defensive tenacity, rebounding, all that stuff that he offers, and Bennett was sort of on that trajectory. He could have given us that with a little bit more scoring, but it just didn't work out. And I think a large part was because Biyombo stole a lot of those minutes.
Yeah, and I think if Bennett was just able to hit his 3-point shot a little more consistently, he might have seen some or
Does
shared
he have a 3-point shot?
Well,
does he really have a 3-point shot?
Well, no is the answer, obviously. But I don't know. Somewhere there, you hope that he has a 3-point shot because he shoots it with that great confidence, though, right? We talked about that.
Yeah, confidence and reality are two different things, I guess. But it was the one thing he seemed to do confidently, because any other time you saw him, like in the media or anywhere else, he just seemed like he was so bummed out, which made sense given where he's come from being the first pick overall. So it's just a tough situation for him. I think he's just got to find he's kind of like a Kwame Brown. He just has to find a situation where he can just settle in and just be.
But again, except Kwame Brown could rebound.
Yeah, I agree. But what
at
I'm
an above average NBA level,
he just has to find a spot on a team that says, we're willing to take a chance on you and give you some sort of minutes or ability to showcase himself. And then
I think he's off to Europe. I think that's where he should be looking now.
Yeah, potentially.
Because I think it's just talking to Blake, and he's got an eye on the D League, and even if you put him in the D League, there are like guys ahead of him in the D League who are in line to make an NBA roster before him.
I agree.
For him, I think he needs to. He's only 22. Take 2 or 3 years, go to Europe. Like if you're really serious about your basketball career, put some dedication.
Or go to China, right?
And do something.
And give Michael Beasley a run for his money.
And come back in a couple of years and see how it goes. Because right now it's just. I don't even think hanging around with the Raptors 905 is going to do him any good. I think he needs some competitive.
Yeah.
Overseas basketball where he's in real games, not just D League. Like
whatever it is, right? Like China, Australia, maybe, I don't know, somewhere where he can be looked upon as a reliable scorer and an option on a roster, and he's not going to get that here, and probably not in the D League either. Yeah. So. And
just switching over to Jason Thompson, the guy who the Raptors chose to fill the roster spot. But a lot of people asking why it wasn't Ronald Roberts Jr. who had a fantastic. D League season for the Raptors 905. He is injured right now, so he's injured basically. So the Raptors couldn't really, I guess, get him. Maybe at some point we see him. He certainly deserves a shot. I've seen him play many times in the D League. I know you have too, because you cover the D League for the site.
Yeah.
So Ronald Roberts still has to wait, but Jason Thompson. I mean, you can't really go wrong here. This guy's a proven NBA veteran. I think he's a serviceable player. I think the hype coming out of college was maybe a bit too high, but at the end of the day, when a guy has played like what's he in, like I want to say 8th year, like he's been around for a while.
He's been around, and I think the key with Jason
10th
Thompson,
year, wow, or 9th year, yeah.
Like I think the key with Jason Thompson, and to answer your point on the Ronald Roberts, like Roberts obviously super athletic, great player for the 905, has posted some pretty big numbers and stuff. He's a clear talent, there's no doubt about it. I think the reason Uchiri went for a guy like Thompson was because of experience. Like we're the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. We're aiming to get past the first round. We're aiming to be a team that other teams look at and kind of go, oh, I'm scared to play them. It's the it factor that Paul Pierce was referring to. And I think building a roster with veterans, guys who have, it's not like Jason Thompson has experienced a lot of playoff success in Sacramento, but he's been a starter, he's a veteran, and I think it's better to go with somebody who's, got more NBA minutes and is somebody who you can just insert in a playoff game with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter or whatever, and if worse comes to worse, he can hold his own. And I don't know if you could say the same about a guy like Ronald Roberts. So I think it makes sense. And the question is where he's going to fit, because it doesn't seem like Dwayne Casey is comfortable enough. It's only been 2 or 3 games, but it doesn't seem like he's been comfortable enough to insert him into a game. So
it depends on the situation that presents. I think it depends on who's on foul trouble and who the opponent is. I think if you need rebounding and some, like if Biyombo's in foul trouble or JV's having a bad game, you might throw him in there to get some rebounding ahead of Bebe, because Bebe is still a little more slight of weight. Thompson is a little more athletic, a little more agile. Yeah.
Like Casey may opt for him in games where we kind of don't have it from the get-go, and he's just looking for answers. He may go for to a guy like Jason Thompson. But today was just one of those games where we were actually playing well for like 80% of the game and then just got run over. So I don't really think we saw a position for Jason Thompson.
Yeah, I don't think Jason Thompson helps you against the Rockets in the game we just saw.
It was just neither did Patrick Patterson, but that's another story, I guess.
Yeah. All right, on that note, let's take a break, man, and come back after this.
Here's the scenario. Your insurance company is denying your long-term disability claim despite the fact that you've paid premiums for years and your own doctor insists that you're not well enough to work. If this sounds familiar, call Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. You'll speak with me, Brian Goldfinger, a licensed and experienced lawyer who practices exclusively on behalf of accident victims, disability claimants, and their families. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Welcome to part 2 of the Rapcast. Shyam's here, and we're talking Patrick Patterson now. Patrick Patterson, who has had a up and down, mostly up, I want to say, the second half of the season. But Shyam, I know your quick reaction grade was a bit harsh on him. Do you want to explain your thoughts on Patterson?
Well, it's not like he had a terrible game. It's just that with Patrick Patterson, if he's on the court really to do two things, and that's to be a good pick and roll defender off the in those types of situations, or help defender, depending on what the situation is. And he's expected to make threes. That means when he's open, you're expecting Lowry or DeRozan to get into the paint, kick it out. And when he's open, you're expecting him to nail it. And he's had, like you mentioned, after the All-Star game, or I guess since the second half of the season. So basically since like January 1st, if I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Patterson's numbers post January 1st has been a lot better than pre. So I think he's been playing a lot better. It's just that he has these games like today where if he's not shooting the three well, like he was minus 11 today, going 2 for 6 from three. And I think when he's not playing that position well, hitting threes as a stretch four, he's just not as efficient as we would like him to be. It's not like he had a bad game. He still had 4 rebounds, still had 8 points. Typical Patrick Patterson-like performance. It's just that we'd like to see 2 or 3 more three-pointers, especially given that the Rockets hit 13 of their own.
What bugs me about him is that he still hesitates a lot on his shots. Like, I count at least 2 possessions a game where he passes up a clean look, which ends up in a more difficult look overall for the possession.
And he's not a rhythm shooter, right? Like, he's got that sort of slingshot type of motion. So it's not like a Lowry where he's coming off a dribble and he's, when he's feeling it or whatever, he just pulls up and knocks it down. It's more of a catch and shoot on a penetration, kick out, open, and then, takes up half a second to wind up and then shoots it. So when you're shooting like that, if something gets in your head and you start hesitating, it's just terrible for your shot. It's not like Lowry or one of the other guys where they can just sort of pick it up, bounce back, and potentially hit the next one. So you're right. Like if he's having a bad game, you don't really expect him to hit threes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and sometimes
even though he did today though, which was weird.
Like his sometimes he adds value on the defensive side, like we saw against LeBron James, where he guarded really well in that fourth quarter and kind of I would say almost won us the game. And against the Rockets, we saw him guard like Corey Brewer a few times,
or
and then
not guard Corey Brewer,
or tried to guard Corey Brewer, and Corey Brewer was fading on him.
Yeah,
and then he was on Harden a couple times. It was like he's one of those defensive guys you can kind of rotate, and you don't have to worry about because he matches up well with a lot of people. So there is value to having him on the court even when he's not hitting his three. Except that when he's not hitting his three, it's really, really evident on the offense because you see him passing up shots, and it becomes like, what is he bringing on offense? And the answer is like not much. Like 2 for 6 he was from 3-point line against the Rockets, but there were a lot of those possessions where he had the opportunity to do a lot more, whether it be putting it on the floor, whether it be just shooting it or creating for somebody else. And that's the one thing about him. He's not a great passer, and he gets the ball a lot on those swing sequences and rotations that the Raptors do. Like he had 2 assists in this game. The previous 3 games, 0 assists. Then he had 1, and then 3 more games with 0 assists. So he's got that. Like if he's not hitting his 3, as you said, he's bringing literally nothing on offense. And defensively, I'd say he's been an above average defender for the Raptors. So that's his saving grace.
Yeah, and like when Terrence Ross is bad, Patterson sticks out like a sore thumb because the bench just looks terrible when Terrence Ross and Patrick Patterson, lay an egg. So, and today Terrence Ross was terrible. Not terrible. I mean, he had that nifty dunk on the fast break. He had a couple threes, or I think 1 3, but he was still 3 for 10. Played terrible defense on Harden for most of the game. So I think when Ross isn't playing well, Patterson not playing well looks that much worse. So this was just one of those games where when both of those guys didn't bring anything different to the table, it just really burned us. And at the end of the day, it's all about the three. I think I don't really like Matt Devlin, but if there's something I agree with that he says is that it's the three is the key. And if Patterson and Ross both aren't hitting threes, our bench usually stinks.
And like with Ross, I know he struggled 3 for 10 in this game, and he was 1 for 4 against Portland and 4 for 13 against Utah. But I find it weird, but I don't have a problem with the shots he's taking. Like, he's actually putting it on the floor and taking decent mid-range jumpers. Yeah, he's missing them, but I don't call that. He's just missing makeable shots. I don't think they're bad shots or he's scared. He's doing the right things on the court offensively. Sometimes the shot's not going in, but overall, even though he's 3 for 10, I see a lot of positives in his offensive game. Does that make me crazy?
Well, I think we kind of have the bias of some of the previous games we've been seeing. Because I know what you're talking about. Like, he's just more confident overall. His numbers, again, like Patterson, his numbers since Gen 1 have been, like, way better than the first half of the season. So I think, he's definitely has more confidence in his shot. And when he pulls up mid-range, it's not like, oh, God, anymore. It's like, oh, he might actually make the shot. And sometimes he does. So it's nice to see he's mixing it up. I really wish Terrence Ross could somehow find a way to get to the line 4 to 6 times a game. And he has the ability to do it. It's just that we're yet to even see that part of his game. So the three-pointer in the mid-range we'll have to stick to for now as long as he could do it consistently.
He's gone to the line 13 times since February 1st.
Yeah, like that's not going to cut it. The reason DeMarre was able to take his game to the next level with a lot of the same tools that Terrence Ross had. In fact, Terrence has more tools, I would argue, than DeMarre did coming out of USC. Like, he has way more. Yeah. I think he's more athletic. He can shoot better, but he just can't get to the line. And I think DeMarre was able to develop that ability, which made him an all-star, right?
Yeah. So you brought up Devlin there. I just want to talk about him for it. Are you do you even notice the contact no calls at this point, or are you just like?
I think at the end of the game today when DeRozan missed those the last few fourth quarter shots, it was just terrible. Like, it's gotten to a point where I just expect him to say that if DeRozan puts the ball on the ground. Like, it could be anything. It could literally just be him having a wide open layup and Devlin getting on the ref's case, because it's so much homer, especially with him and Jack together. It's just the amount of homerism on that broadcast is hilarious. But you gotta love it. You gotta love it as a Raptors fan. Right?
Yeah, I guess. What did you think of that flagrant foul that they called on DeMarre DeRozan, and I think it was Beverly that he took down?
It was after the lack of call, and then when DeMarre was frustrated.
That call, man, it just pissed me off because it's not.
You know what? That call didn't piss me off.
Flagrant, man.
Well, it's a flagrant in 2016's NBA. I think not that I agree with it, but I have seen calls like that been called in many NBA games this year, and it's. Even Dellavedova against the Dellavedova flagrant foul. That was 4 years ago. That would not be a flagrant foul.
The one on Biyombo.
Yeah, the one on Biyombo in the Cleveland home game. It was a hard foul, and I think that was a reputation foul almost. Given Dellavedova's sort of being a dirty player type of reputation, but in this case,
he hit him on the arms.
Yeah, it was a straight up just a hard foul. I've seen Shaq be fouled like that millions of times in the early 2000s. And it was just a foul. And all of a sudden, because it's Dellavedova on Biyombo, it was a flagrant. And in today's case, the way DeRozan sort of motioned towards Beverly, kind of ran towards him, and it was a close game, the refs expect some emotion or whatever. I didn't agree with it, but I've seen calls like that made, before. I think the one that pissed me off more was the Dwayne Casey technical.
Yeah,
that made, to me, was just I understand he was in the middle of the court, but it was that goes uncalled so many times, man.
And I think it was Bernie Bickerstaff who pointed the ref's attention to that.
JB Bickerstaff. Yeah, he did. And, it's just... and I think he did the same thing in the fourth, which was come on, man.
Yeah, and Devlin called that out. Devlin's like, oh, how about a tech there? because Bickerstaff was at the half court line too.
Half court no call.
Yeah, half court no call.
That's good. Hashtag half court no call.
That's the. I think we just got the name of the episode. Half court no call.
Oh, man.
Devlin.
God.
He's a friend of the show, man. He comes on.
He's good. I still like. He's one of those guys that's he's just endearing at this point. Listening to his his voice on the Raptors broadcast. It's just
he's like one of those uncles who comes over on Thanksgiving and tells you like a bunch of stories.
Yeah, and you're just like, like you're just trying to enjoy the game, but you're just like, you know what? There's part of you that just almost likes it.
Yeah, okay. So I think we gotta get back on track. Let's continue with this 7-game homestand that we got going here. This week, another 3-game week. I like these 3-game weeks.
Yeah, it's nice and just a nice crisp 3-game week.
It's a crisp pace. Not the 4-game weeks are a bit much.
Yeah, like the 4 games in 5 nights or the back-to-backs and stuff. Like,
or if you're the Wizards, back to back to back.
Oh God.
Are
they the only team in the league that had that?
I think because of the snowstorm or something.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So Tuesday, Brooklyn. Thursday, Atlanta. And then Saturday, Miami, man. I mean, I guess we got to talk about all 3 games, but let's start with Miami. I picked these guys to do really well this season, and a lot of people laughed at me. And right now they're doing it 4th in the conference, 37-26.
Without Chris Bosh, too.
Without Chris Bosh.
Incredible, man. Incredible. And I think a large part of that is because of guys like... Well, first of all, Spoelstra is still a very good coach. I think people forget that. And I think you're seeing that now, too, with LeBron in Cleveland. The importance of good coaching and how that affected LeBron was a big deal. And Spoelstra is a great coach. Whiteside, obviously, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Guys like Justice Winslow, great on-the-ball defender. Gerald, like their bench is still a bit weak, but... They've got solid guys around Dwayne Wade to sort of hold the fort, and they're 4th in the conference now. The East is pretty well balanced, and I think they'll probably wind up between 4 and 6, in the standings, which is pretty damn good. I think some people were expecting them to be out of the playoffs. I expected them similar, maybe not as good as you thought they would be, but I expected them to be in the conversation, probably between 5 and 8.
Yeah. So this is I think the Raptors have played them a couple times. I want to say. I think it's a 1-1.
We played them in Miami 3 times, with a loss early in the season, and then beat them twice, and then beat them at home. That was like literally half of their team. That was the game without Dragic, no Bosh. I think like half their team was injured. So. Yeah,
and we blew them out at home 101-81. So this time it's a Saturday night. So they're on a back-to-back for this one. We're kind of starting ass backwards on the schedule, man. Let's start with Brooklyn and get that out of the way. March 8th, Brooklyn.
Do we have to talk about Bargnani? Do we have to talk about this one?
No Andrea Bargnani.
This one feels like the Utah one that we just had. Like it was just like if we lose this game, like I don't know what else to say at that point. Like this is just one of those games where I just hope the Raptors blow them out so we can get the starters some rest.
Quick check on Brooklyn. Losers of 3 of their last 4 games. They just
I think you could just stop it at losers. Man.
Okay, all right. Fine. So Brooklyn on Tuesday night, and then you got Atlanta, ATL, March 10th, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. ACC. Atlanta, one of those teams that I think is just a great regular season team, but playoffs I just don't trust them at all. We beat them once, 96-86 in Atlanta. Lowry I think exploded in that game. I remember. And now we face them at the ACC for the 2nd time only this season. In total, we played them 4 times.
Too, man.
Bebe exploded too. That's right. That was his coming out party. The Hawks, man. Give me your analysis of the Hawks.
They've been disappointing. Losing DeMarre Carroll has hurt them more than I imagined. They're basically, other than that, a similar team. Like they still have Jeff Teague. They still have Kent Bazemore. They still have Al Horford. Like they've got Kyle Korver. Most of their pieces are still intact. It's just that chemistry they had in the second half of last year as they made the rise to the first in the Eastern Conference. They don't have that anymore for some reason. I don't know what it is, but they don't have that zing in the way they pass the ball anymore. And I think some of that has to fall on Coach Budenholzer. So I think they don't scare me, but this is definitely still one of those games. It's just a potential disappointment game. Like today, the Rockets didn't scare me either, but it's just one of those games that the Raptors could just come out and be flat and end up losing. So on paper, I think a win, but potential letdown.
Yeah, I mean, I saw them play the Clippers a couple of days ago. They won that in LA, I think that one was, and Paul Millsap went off, and you saw that, the Raptors are a bit weak at the power forward. So anytime you look at a matchup like Scola versus Millsap, or Millsap versus Biyombo, you can see Millsap like really going off there.
Yeah.
Just because he has so many moves down there and he's quick enough.
He stretches us out too, right? Like no one's going to be guarding him out at the 3-point line.
Jason Thompson.
Enter Jason Thompson.
But I think that's what scares me about the Hawks is that we really don't have anybody to guard a guy like Paul Millsap. I think Al Horford is big, he's lumbering, and I think JV does okay against him.
Right.
And I think he can hold him a little bit and also make him pay the price on the other end. But Millsap is a guy that really scares me. And you saw what Lillard did to Lowry a couple days ago. Jeff Teague, obviously not at the same level, but has the potential to do that sometimes.
Yeah, he breaks Lowry down at the point of attack. Like every time we play them, and Lowry's obviously a lot quicker now. But I remember last year, like Tyreek Evans, guys like Tyreek Evans and Jeff Teague, and those kind of guys that could just break people down at the point of attack. Largely because we had Gravis Vasquez also manning the point last year, but defensively, like we just are very vulnerable to guys like that. But hopefully, Corey Joseph can patch that up and help out Lowry in the minutes that he plays against Jeff Teague. So I think it should be okay. But yeah, like totally has the potential to just go off and get to the rim at will.
Yeah, and I also like their backup point guard Dennis Schroeder, who kind of one of the Raptors to target in the draft. He's a solid looking point guard, man. I think give him a couple of more years and he'll be. He's one of those guys.
He's still 22 or 23, right?
He is young, dude. He's been playing professional since he was 14. He's only 22 14? Right now. Like something like that, man. I'm not joking. Not joking. Like Luis Scola's been playing professional since he was 15.
Yeah, I think Schroeder's solid, and I think the key for Atlanta was whether they were going to be sellers or buyers at the trade deadline, and they did not sell. So that really changed the trajectory of their season because I think most people were expecting them to sell one of Teague or Horford or both, and they kept both. And if they had gotten rid of Teague, Schroeder would have been sort of penciled in as the next point guard for them or franchise point guard, which would have been interesting and would have probably set them back in the standings, but would have made it a lot more interesting. And I think he will sort of end up taking over that starting role in a couple of years.
Yeah. What do you think their offense is this year, ranked in the NBA?
Probably average. I would say between 10 and 20.
10 and 20.
Yeah.
Really?
What is it?
I don't know. I'm looking it up. Keep talking.
I don't know, man. Atlanta, I don't care about Atlanta, to be perfectly honest. It's just one of those games. Like, you mentioned Lowry going off in the game we played them. Like, I'm expecting something like that from either Lowry or DeRozan on
20th.
Thursday.
The 20th offense.
Yeah, so I barely made it. They're just middle of the pack. I mean, slightly below average, I guess, but like, who cares about Atlanta, really? Like, this year, they look like a team that's probably going to end up between, 4 and 7 in the standings and probably be out in the first round, depending on who their first round matchup is.
We might face them in the playoffs, but we'll save that talk for another podcast. But like, I think I brought this up a couple of pods ago about a potential playoff matchup with them and how who their stopper is for DeMarre DeRozan. And the only guy that I could think of at the time was maybe Bazemore or Cephalosha?
I'd say Bazemore more so than Cephalosha, just given the length. Cephalosha is like a mobile defender, but Bazemore's got the length, and he's given DeRozan trouble in the past. But I think Lowry would, you mentioned Jeff Teague having a great game on Thursday, but I think in a playoff series, Lowry would tear him to pieces. So I think they don't scare me at all, to be perfectly honest, but who knows, right?
Yeah. Well, let's see if I think they have been playing.
Do you expect Baby to enter the game though?
Why? Because he did last time. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much.
I have no idea. I have no idea what Dwayne Casey thinks of Baby or when he plays and when he doesn't.
What were you gonna say? I totally cut you off.
Yeah. I don't know. Next thing you know, I'll see an article pop up on the site. Baby assigned to Raptors 905. I have no idea. I don't know what the plan is with those guys. I do know that the Hawks did take the Warriors to overtime once, and then also they were tight with them twice, but lost both games, kind of like the Raptors. Yep. So they have been playing a little bit better. I think our defense will be tested here, if we play the same defense we did against the Rockets or the Blazers, we might again give up 115 points. But so let's keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I think you're bang on. Individually, each one of the guys has the ability on their starting lineup has the ability to kind of cause issues for us. Like point of attack for Jeff Teague. From the shooting guard position, Kyle Korver can cause havoc from 3. Horford can bang and get rebounds. Millsap can stretch out and hit threes. So, like, all of their guys could potentially have a big game. So I think defensively, locking these guys down from a defense perspective is going to be huge. And, getting DeMarre Carroll back for games like this is that much more important.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk about Miami. So a similar fact about Miami and the Houston Rockets was that they're both playing on back-to-backs with the Raptors at home, and they both played Chicago the night before.
Interesting. So, well, they'll probably be Chicago's playing slightly better now, given Butler's back in the lineup. So I think, it's only really been one game, but you expect them to be a lot better now that Butler's back in the lineup. So if they can, give them a beating and then hand them over to us, it didn't work for Houston, but if it'll work for Atlanta, then that'll be good, right? Or sorry, Miami, then that's great. I think Miami's going to be a lot tougher than last time, though. That's for sure.
Yes, and they just came off a home and home sweep of the Sixers, who I don't know what their win total now is, but for the Heat, is Joe Johnson playing? Yeah, he's starting. He had 14 points against the Sixers.
Oh, he's starting?
31 minutes. Yeah, he's starting.
Oh, okay.
He started, yeah.
Right, okay.
So we should see Joe Johnson again. And Dwayne Wade again played 31 minutes. So he's basically, hurt but not injured, I think somebody said last time. And Dragic's playing high minutes. Luol Deng versus DeMar DeRozan. A lot of good matchups here. They're pretty much healthy other than Chris Bosh. Whiteside versus Biyombo. So this is a matchup which is almost like I want to say a second round preview, maybe even if things hold.
Yeah, if we stay at 2, we'd probably play Boston, I guess, in the second round, the way it currently stands. But yeah, definitely we could run into them in the playoffs. So good sort of litmus test for the Raptors to see how they fare against a healthy Miami Heat squad, which tore them apart early in the season. But I mean, we had a home victory against them. I think 1 or 2, I can't remember. I think we actually have 2 home victories against them this season. So
yeah, 2. Yeah, and they're just stacked at the wings, man. Wade, Dragic, Deng,
Joe
Johnson, Winslow's Gerald Green. Yeah, they're.
And some of those guys can go off too, right? Gerald Green is one of those J.R. Smith type of guys. He could just go unconscious and start hitting threes. So literally any one of those guys could light you up.
It's very, very athletic team on every position, pretty much, and just scary.
Oh, it's going to be a tough game.
For
sure. I think we can win it. It's going to be tough, and like the Atlanta game, basically every guy can light it up. So
yeah, this is my game to watch in the week. I think last week it was Cleveland, obviously.
Is this the primetime game on Saturday night? The ABC.
It's 7 p.m. Yeah, it's not an ABC though. No, it's not an ABC.
I think we're done with national broadcast.
I don't think we're there yet, Shyam. Not there yet.
Not yet. In second seed, no.
but this would have been a good candidate for a primetime game.
Yeah. If Houston, Chicago is playing, then why can't Miami, Toronto, right?
Actually, let me check what the primetime game is.
Because
I think it's. Yeah.
It
was Rockets Bulls yesterday.
Yeah. The Saturday night primetime games are awesome, though, man. They're amazing.
Oh, it's okay. So okay, fine. There's a better game, I guess. OKC versus San Antonio.
Oh, that'll be good.
That's okay.
I think that.
I don't feel as bad anymore.
Yeah, I think we had 1 or 2 less nationally televised games this year than last. Probably because of the 4-game slate, but hopefully next year.
Yeah. So that's that. Give me a call for Miami. And what to watch out for here? What are the Raptors have to do well to nick this one?
I think just contain Whiteside. Dwayne Wade's probably going to get his 15 to 20 points. And contain, I think, the wing spot, like you mentioned. Between Wade, Deng, Gerald Green, and Justice Winslow, you can't have more than 60 points. If you do, then I think you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And in terms of from an interior perspective, I think you got to contain Whiteside. Just hold him to under 12 rebounds. Make sure he doesn't get position in the post. I think a lot of that's going to be on JV to be able to make sure that he doesn't do that. And part of that is going to be making him work on the defensive end, right? JV's got to have a big offensive game, and that sort of feeds into what we were talking about with respect to DeMarre and Kyle, having the trust in him to give him touches in the fourth quarter and not have to force tough shots to get fouls. And that's another thing. We can't continue to rely on DeMar DeRozan getting to the free throw line to sort of bail us out, because that's not going to work in the playoffs. It's just not. So, I mean, we're going to have to see a balanced offense and, like I said, contain the wing and Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah, and they're pretty much, they're having some really good rebounding games of late, and I think the rebounding is going to be the key. With Whiteside in there, I think obviously rebounding equals possessions, and the Raptors can't be wasteful on possessions. So I'd say number one thing is rebounding, keeping Whiteside at bay. And it's going to be interesting to see how DeMarre DeRozan handles some good defenders again. We saw him go against Ariza today. It wasn't the greatest. I don't think he had great success against him. So you'll see some more defenders and different looks too, because Dan guards him pretty tough. They got Winslow there, who's an aggressive defender. They got Gerald Green. So he's not going to get. It's not just about DeMarre DeRozan versus one guy. It's about DeMarre DeRozan going up against one good defender and getting help via some other good defenders. So it's going to be a challenge. And as you said, Eric Spoelstra is a pretty good coach. So it's going to be a tough game for the Raptors, and I don't know. Like it's one of those statement games that I would like to see the Raptors kind of take it home.
Yeah, like in this week, I would say we beat Brooklyn, and then we will probably lose one of Atlanta or Miami. I just can't point my finger to which. We will probably.
I'd rather win Miami. I think that says a lot more than.
Oh yeah, I agree. I just think we probably will lose one of the two. Just from a individual game to game perspective, I can't see why we don't go 3-0, but. Just the way they've been playing with losses to Detroit, loss against tonight to Houston, a close game against Utah. Like I just feel like these aren't going to just be guaranteed wins. We'll probably lose one of the three. Just can't figure out which.
Yeah. What's Chris Bosh's timetable?
Probably as or more unknown than DeMarre Carroll. I've got no idea. It's a recurring issue, so it's not something where even the Heat medical staff, I don't know if they really understand whether it's something that could be permanently cured. So at this stage, I don't know if they think if it's something where it's perpetually going to just keep, impacting his ability to play, or is it just a health issue that he'll have to deal with off the court? And that's a big decision for them. So that's, I think, what's holding up the timetable. And even if it doesn't, though, like let's just say he comes back in a week, going forward for his career, like I don't know if teams are really going to be looking at him as a guy they want to, invest a long-term future. Not that he's got a lot left in the tank after this Miami contract, but still, right?
So the latest update from him came on March 6th, where it was said he's not with the team, but he's working out with the staff and staying engaged. So he's not practicing, but he's working out, I guess. And the main point is this one: like Bosh's potential return date remains a mystery, but as long as he's taking blood thinning medication, it's extremely unlikely that he'll be able to return to the court.
But just think about how scary that sounds, though, man.
Yeah,
blood thinning medication. Like, would you want to sign? I mean, I think he's in the first or second year of a 4-year contract with Miami, but like, would you want to sign a guy that's like in that situation? I don't know, man. Like, I think it's more than just this season for Chris Bosh.
Yeah. Right, so let's see how that goes. We wish him the best of health and all that. So that's that. I think we got to sign off, Shyam. I think it's been a wonderful chat of basketball.
After a terrible game.
After a terrible game. But you know what? The Houston game, the loss, it sucks. It was annoying, as I said, but it's okay. Like it's one of those things that just happens, and it's a shitty Sunday night loss, and we've had a few bad ones of those. But if losing this game means we're going to win Miami somehow, if those two are somewhat interconnected in this universe, I'd say that'd be cool. You beat Miami, I think all is forgiven.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you got to beat Chicago too at the end of the homestand. For me,
I
was expecting them to beat Miami. To be perfectly honest, I think that'll be a tough game for sure. But I think we should be expected to beat Miami. But we got to beat Chicago. They've just been a thorn in our side, so that's going to be a good game as well.
Like Atlanta's beaten Chicago last week. Miami's beaten Chicago.
Yeah, we're like
one
of
the
only
ones
teams
who can't beat Chicago.
I don't know, man.
But that's a Monday game, and for that we'll come back next week and talk about that. In the meantime, do give us a rating on your mobile device. If you go to iTunes, Stitcher, or any mobile application where you listen to the podcast, give us a rating. Tell us what we could do better. And also, if you have the means to do so, support Raptors Republic by visiting Patreon. That's patreon.com/Raptors Republic. And check out Blake and Will's podcast, which airs on Friday, the Raptors Weekly Extra podcast. Next week, we hope to have Andrew back. Shyam, he's been on a world tour of late. He's been to Malaysia and a bunch of other Far East countries, so he might come back with some stories we can listen to.
The return of Mr. Thompson. Can't wait.
Yeah, he might regale us with some interesting stories from the Far East.
Looking forward to it, man.
Maybe involving, I don't know, Beasley. Maybe ran into him.
Maybe.
I don't know. All right, listener, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.